Good day, everyone. How are you doing today? This is Lady Jackson. You can say Yvonne Jackson, Minister Jackson, Elder Jackson. It don't matter. I'm Yvonne Jackson. I want to come to you today. Thanking you so much for just tuning in again here at the Yvonne Jackson Glory Women page. I just want to thank you so much, guys, for subscribing at the bottom. This is our new YouTube channel, and I want to get on to today and just continue talking about um, the glory of women and the principle of the glory of women. And we left off talking about Genesis, going into the book of Genesis, chapter 3. And we were sharing concerning the principle of a woman and how that it can't change. The principle, any principles that God has made, none of those principles can change. They can be altered, and man has altered so much of what God has put in place. From the beginning, it was not so. So that is not what God had permitted or what his will may be for our life. So it was as a dove. Be wise as a serpent doesn't mean he wants us to walk in the evil, disobedient way that the serpent actually walked. He wanted us to be wise like the serpent. You know, that wisdom wisdom has always been there. There's also a principle concerning wisdom and what wisdom is. But even when women begin to, I'm gonna get my Bible here. We were talking earlier to you guys about even when women in the third chapter, how that we were at a place in our life where God had forbidden us to do something that was not put in place by him for us to do. Well, God always has a plan. In here, he always has a plan. And he said that it wasn't good that man be alone. So even when man was alone, God let us know that when man was alone, he let us know women being man's glory. He's such a awesome, powerful, unique being. I mean, God is supreme. He is so wonderfully to be praised. He's so sovereign, just, holy. There is my mind being so finite. It cannot even be compared to the infantry that God even have in our life. It's beyond my understanding when I think about God's word and to get revelations from his word. When he talks about women, he talks about women being man's glory. When man seen the woman, he was just astounded even himself. But what he have failed to realize, that God took something that was already him and made it to be another replica or duplicated person like himself that would be able to come together, unify with him to do the same things that God had created him to do, but it would just be a different role that she may play, but the capabilities were still there, but it was going to cause them to be able to be two. Just like God had the relationship with man in the earth, he wanted the same relationship that man would experience with woman that he had with him. And man sort of cannot really get it or understand it. Not all men. Some men can understand it, but some men may not really understand the truth of the matter. With this being said, God has a woman to be there for the man. And when she actually ate the fruit that the serpent actually led her to eat the fruit, do you not think that God had made plans for her to eat that fruit? He didn't want them to eat that fruit, but God knew who they were before he even created us. He said that he know us even before we was in our mother's womb, or before he even created us. God knows exactly who we are. And God will make plans, even those things in our life that may be what we call mistakes. But sometimes it is the plan of God that we use it, because he gets glory out of everything in the earth that he has created. So sometimes the plans that we go through, it helps to make us to become even more like him, or even more wiser to what it is. So man never disobeyed God with the with the garden. I'm talking about man as male, never disobeyed God without eating the fruit. So he was very obedient, but he was the principal one that God had in the earth. So God taking woman out of him, and she's doing what she did, it did not please God that man did what he did, but it was a plan, and it was something that was infinite that God was allowing to take place to set principle in the earth, okay, with man and woman. And it caused a principle to be set in the earth that a woman, even when she took that first bite of that fruit, now her eyes became open to the wisdom that was given to her around her. So even with that being said, that lets us know that that principle was set in place, that she was going to be the one that God was going to use to help man in the earth to come to a knowledge of understanding ourselves in this world. Yes, in the spirit realm, we are not in the world. We're in the world, but not of the world. So when by we being in the world, then we need to have some understanding about the world that is around us. So it gives us a lot of understanding of the world around us and how it was to be operated. The enemy knew this, okay? He already knew this, and God always used him to begin to show us things in our life. God uses the enemy. Yes, he uses the enemy. He was created by God, and now God uses him to help us become better people, to help us to see who we really are in him. So when we go talking about principles concerning a woman and who she really is, we can't comprehend everything, because what God placed in her was also placed in man. So when man blame woman, because woman came out of him, then he has to blame himself. Because it didn't happen just by one. It happened with two, but it was still one spirit that actually was made with two forms of bodies. So with all that being said, we have to come together and be unified. I don't want to talk long, but I want to be brief with you to let you know, hey, God has wonderfully created us in his image and his likeness, and he had man here to be principal, and we're here as women to be able to come together with man to help meet those things and areas in this life that God wanted to be met, so that we can be able to come together and be the power tools that God would use. But we'll talk about that later, because the enemy had an intricate part that he plays even to this day in our lives, because we do not know exactly who we may be as a woman. But we're going to learn that together. We're going to hear that as the Spirit of God give a revelation as to who we are in him. So women, I want you to gather around, subscribe to the channel so that you can be able to progress in this day, progress in everything that God will have us to be, so you can be able to be power packed in what God is calling us to in these days. There's so much taking place. Time seems to be getting short in this life. It seems like it's so much wisdom coming forth. Our children are getting to things, but you know what? Mothers, women, daughters, we can cause things to be changed, because every time a man opens his eyes when he's a newborn, he sees the woman figure first. He sees a woman figure, unless he's at the doctor office and see a man. But when he sees his mom is set in place, that she has to be the one to teach him or give him that sound wisdom about what took place and how the enemy will be willing to destroy them, or to destroy us as being who God has created us to be. So we have a intricate, very important, vital point of view, a vital part in our life that God wants us to play. So let's stay tuned. Thank you again for just listening to Glory of Women, Yvonne Jackson. We're out. Take care. Talk to you in the next go round. Subscribe to the channel and get someone else also to subscribe. We love you. You have a wonderful and beautiful day.